On a sweltering evening in May 1993, the small town of West Memphis, Arkansas, was thrown into darkness. At 6:30 p.m., three young boys, Steve Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, were last seen playing together. Their last moments were captured in the memories of three neighbors, who recounted seeing them together, then being called by Terry Hobbs, Steve Branch's stepfather, to come home. As night fell, friends and neighbors ventured out to search for the boys, their voices mingling with the soft sounds of the Arkansas countryside. The search was thorough but fruitless. By 8 a.m. the next morning, a more organized effort began, led by Crittenden County search and rescue personnel. They combed through the town, focusing on Robin Hood Hills, the last known location of the boys. Yet the search turned up nothing. Then at 1:45 p.m., a boy's black shoe was spotted floating in a muddy creek. Searchers quickly uncovered the devastating truth. The bodies of the three boys were hidden in the drainage canal. The boys had been stripped naked and tied with their shoelaces, their right ankles to their right wrists and their left arms and legs to each other. Their clothes were found twisted around sticks, turned inside out, and missing two pairs of underwear. Christopher Byers bore the most horrific injuries, including lacerations and mutilation. The initial police report suggested rape, but expert testimony later disputed this. Sperm DNA was found on a pair of pants, adding to the mystery. The forensic pathologist, Frank J. Peretti, concluded that the boys died from multiple injuries and multiple injuries with drowning, but the nature of their wounds remained a puzzle. Police believed the boys had been assaulted and later, possibly mutilated by something or someone. The case became a nightmare of uncertainty, a crime scene that yielded more questions than answers. The boys' families and the town were left to grapple with the unspeakable loss, their world turned upside down by the cruel and unknown hand that took their children. On a sweltering evening in May 1993, the small town of West Memphis, Arkansas, was thrown into darkness. At 6:30 p.m., three 8-year-old boys, Steve Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, were last seen playing together near their homes. Their disappearance sent shockwaves through the close-knit community, where the boys were well known and beloved. The first report to the police was made by Christopher's adoptive father, John Mark Byers, around 7 p.m. Neighbors and friends quickly mobilized to search for the missing children, but their efforts yielded no immediate results. The first signs of the boys' fate emerged in the early hours of May 6, when a juvenile parole officer, Steve Jones, discovered a black shoe floating in a muddy creek. The subsequent search revealed the chilling truth. The boys had been stripped, hogtied, and their bodies left in a ditch, their clothing scattered nearby. The scene was horrific, and the townspeople were left reeling from the brutal violence that had taken their children. The crime scene in Robin Hood Hills, with its dense trees and overgrown brush, had been the boys' last known location. The investigation, conducted by Crittenden County search and rescue personnel, was thorough but yielded no immediate breakthroughs. The town, a working-class community with a population of around 23,000, was shaken to its core. The boys were the sons of working-class families, and their deaths sent ripples of grief and fear through the community. The social fabric of West Memphis, with its close-knit family networks and tight-knit neighborhoods, was tested as the town grappled with the unspeakable loss. The era in which the boys were killed was one of social upheaval and tension. The late 1980s and early 1990s saw a rise in sensationalist media reports and a growing fear of satanic cults. The trial that followed would be clouded by these fears, as the prosecution painted a chilling narrative of a satanic ritual gone wrong. The social context of West Memphis at the time was one of heightened anxiety and suspicion, with the boys' deaths serving as a catalyst for a broader societal fear and mistrust. On a sweltering evening in May 1993, the small town of West Memphis, Arkansas, was thrown into darkness. At 6:30 p.m., three young boys, Steve Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, were last seen together. Around 7 p.m., their adoptive father, John Mark Byers, reported them missing. Neighbors who had seen the boys playing together earlier that evening provided affidavits, adding to the mystery. By 8 a.m. the next morning, a more thorough search by Crittenden County Search and Rescue personnel focused on Robin Hood Hills. The area was searched intensively, yet no sign of the boys was found. Background: by 1:45 p.m., juvenile parole officer Steve Jones spotted a boy's black shoe in a muddy creek. This discovery prompted a deeper investigation. A search of the ditch revealed the bodies of the three boys. They had been stripped naked and were tied with their shoelaces, their right ankles tied to their right wrists and their left arms and legs similarly bound. Their clothing was found in the creek, twisted around sticks. 2 pairs of underwear were missing. Christopher Byers had lacerations to various parts of his body and mutilation of his scrotum and penis. Autopsies indicated that Byers died of multiple injuries, while Moore and Branch died of multiple injuries with drowning. Background: police initially suspected the boys had been raped, but later expert testimony disputed this. Trace amounts of sperm DNA were found on a pair of pants recovered from the scene. Prosecution experts claimed Byers' wounds were the result of a knife attack and that he had been purposely castrated by the murderer. Defense experts suggested the injuries were more likely the result of post-mortem animal predation. The case was soon clouded by suspicion and speculation, particularly given the boys' ages and the bizarre nature of the crime. Background: the initial investigation was marked by limited resources and a heavy focus on a satanic ritual as the motive. Damien Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Misskelley Jr., all 18 at the time, were the primary suspects. The boys' families and friends were devastated, and the community was gripped by fear and uncertainty. As the investigation progressed, the evidence against the three teens was dubious, lacking in physical connections to the crime scene and raising significant questions about the case's integrity. On a sweltering evening in May 1993, the small town of West Memphis, Arkansas, was thrown into darkness. At 6:30 p.m., three boys, Steve Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, were last seen together. Their disappearance sparked immediate concern among friends, neighbors, and the community. By 7 p.m., their adoptive father, John Mark Byers, reported the boys missing to the police. Initial searches by local friends and neighbors, as well as a more thorough investigation by Crittenden County Search and Rescue personnel, focused on Robin Hood Hills, where the boys were last seen. Despite a comprehensive search, no signs of the boys were found. The first indication of foul play came when a juvenile parole officer, Steve Jones, discovered a boy's shoe in a muddy creek. A subsequent investigation uncovered the bodies of the three boys, stripped naked and hogtied with their shoelaces. Their clothing was found twisted around sticks in the ditch, mostly turned inside out, with 2 pairs of underwear missing. The crime scene was meticulously examined, but the physical evidence was sparse. Forensic pathologist Frank J. Peretti's autopsies indicated multiple injuries, including drowning, but the nature of the wounds and the cause of death were initially disputed. The presence of trace amounts of sperm DNA on a pair of pants found at the scene led the prosecution to assert a satanic ritual as the motive. However, defense experts later argued that the injuries were likely due to post-mortem animal predation, not a human assailant. Authorities, under pressure from public outcry and media attention, swiftly arrested Damien Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Misskelley Jr., all teenagers at the time. Their confessions, obtained under questionable circumstances, implicated them in the murders. The prosecution's case was bolstered by the boys' alleged admissions of guilt, which were later recanted. The trial was marked by controversy, with allegations of emotional bias and potential juror misconduct. The jury found the three teenagers guilty, and Eccles was sentenced to death, while Miss Skelly and Baldwin received life sentences. Over the years, new forensic evidence emerged, confirming the lack of DNA linking the men to the crime. In 2007, a report jointly issued by the state and defense team revealed that unidentified DNA found at the scene could not be attributed to either the victims or the defendants. In 2010, the Arkansas Supreme Court's decision regarding newly produced DNA evidence and potential juror misconduct led to a plea bargain. The Westmemphisthree entered Fulford pleas, acknowledging the prosecution's evidence but maintaining their innocence. On August 19, 2011, Judge David Laser accepted their pleas, and they were released after serving 18 years in prison. The case remains a haunting reminder of the potential for miscarriages of justice and the importance of rigorous forensic analysis in criminal investigations. Hook, on a sweltering evening in May 1993, the small town of West Memphis, Arkansas, was thrown into darkness. At 6:30 p.m., the lives of three young boys, Steve Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, would be forever changed. By 7 p.m., their disappearance was reported, but their bodies were not found until 1:45 p.m. the next day. The boys were stripped naked, hogtied with their shoelaces, and their clothing found twisted around sticks in a muddy ditch. Their injuries were gruesome and baffling, raising questions that would plague the community and the legal system for years to come. Theories about the crime and who committed it began to circulate almost immediately. The prosecution, in a controversial move, accused the three teenagers, Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miss Skelly Jr., of carrying out the murders as part of a satanic ritual. Their youth and the alleged nature of the crime made the case politically and emotionally charged. However, the evidence presented at trial was questionable. There was no direct physical evidence linking the defendants to the crime. The most damning piece of evidence was the trace amount of sperm DNA found on a pair of pants, but experts disagreed on its significance. The prosecution claimed the boys were raped and that the injuries, particularly those to Christopher Byers, were the result of a knife attack and castration. The defense countered that the injuries were likely due to post-mortem animal predation, a theory supported by some forensic evidence. Despite these contradictions, the jury convicted the three teenagers. Damian Eccles faced the death penalty, while Jesse Miss Skelly and Jason Baldwin received life sentences. Their conviction relied heavily on their confessions, which were later retracted, and the emotional bias of the jury, as suggested by jury misconduct allegations. In 2007, new forensic evidence emerged, confirming the absence of DNA from the defendants at the crime scene. This, combined with the prosecution's inability to explain the nature of the injuries, led to increased scrutiny of the case. Ultimately, in 2011, the Westmemphisthree entered Fulford pleas, maintaining their innocence while acknowledging the state's evidence was sufficient for a conviction. They were released after serving 18 years, marking a tragic and controversial chapter in American criminal justice. The case of the Westmemphisthree remains a somber chapter in true crime history. After serving 18 years in prison, Damian Eccles, Jesse Miss Skelly Jr., and Jason Baldwin were finally freed in August 2011. The DNA evidence presented in 2007, confirming the absence of their DNA at the crime scene, and the plea bargain negotiations that followed, brought an end to their wrongful convictions. While the case has been widely covered and continues to be discussed, key details remain elusive. The nature of the boys' injuries and the true cause of death, including the controversial claim of castration, remain unknown. The Westmemphisthree continue to advocate for the truth, striving for a full understanding of what transpired that fateful night. The Westmemphisthree case continues to resonate, challenging the reliability of forensic evidence and the fairness of the justice system. It spurred significant reforms in legal procedures and raised awareness about the potential for wrongful convictions, particularly among vulnerable youth. The case has also fueled debates about the role of media and public opinion in shaping trial outcomes. Despite the exoneration, many questions remain. What truly happened that night in Robin Hood Hills? Could new evidence or a different approach have led to a quicker resolution? The Westmemphisthree case remains a haunting reminder of the complexities in solving cold cases and the enduring quest for truth. If this case gripped you, there are dozens more waiting in the criminal archive. Every week, we uncover new stories that history tried to forget. Subscribe now and never miss a case. The truth is out there, and we will find it together.